So beginning to look at the structure of this and the shape of this, usually how I do my keys is I will work left and then I will work down. So the first little stream here is kind of your main key. So you see all of these little squares are all grabbing from the original footage. So I kind of am just creating multiple keys that are all grabbing from our same source. So instead of copying and pasting this for every single key that you do, for example, something like this, that's going to slow your script down a little bit by having multiple copies and nodes that you don't actually need. So I'm not doing that. I'm basically just hooking up these little dots. So if you can press the little dot on your keyboard, the period, you can create these branches to sort of break off in as many keys as you need. So normally the way I structure my key is I will do my softer keys first. So for example, these would be the first keys, the first one to break down. And I would do another soft key here, and I would combine the two. So I have the first key and the second key being combined here. And then I would have another key that might, solve another problem. So, and then I would kind of build that here and merge it into our main key. So you see, as this first branch is building, we're kind of constructing a better alpha using multiple of these keys, and then we have this main B pipe. So you see the letter B is pointing down, and that information is going down that B pipe. So A over B, as you know, with like basic compositing, it's better to have the B going down because data will get carried if we have extra channels or anything like that. We're not dealing with that here, but just remember, you always want the B to be pointing down. So we can start to look at this, and I'll just kind of go over some of the basic stuff we did here. So this is an IBK stack, what we talked about, the technique in terms of using IBK color, getting this sort of result where we push it to the edge and then we pull the color back in. So that's using the technique we already talked about, and then we look at that alpha. So this gives us a decent alpha in terms of around the hair and stuff like that. Maybe we could do a better job. Some of it looks a little kind of crunchy. If you look, maybe some areas like this, the best way to see how your key is actually doing is to kind of look back to the original footage and just see, does it seem like it's capturing the shape well? For example, here it's doing a pretty good job. So we have all that nice transparency that we see here. That's like a very semi-transparent hair. And IBK seems to be doing a good job for that. So that's pretty good, but we see there's some pretty obvious issues that we already learned about, which is there's some holes in the screen. There's some holes in the character. Obviously, we have the microphone still here. We have a bit of grain as well. The denoiser solved a little bit of it, but it's still a little bit present, so we might want to clean that up a little bit. You can see I've labeled here. If you look here and gamma down, you can see our alpha is not actually 100% solid. So it's the same little trick I taught you before. If you want to make sure your alpha is good, we can hold control and sample around. And you can see some of the areas are not completely solid. So we can take the gamma and kind of double check it by gammaing down. And now you see, oh wow, there's like a bunch of holes that we couldn't see if we're at the normal gamma. So there's where all the holes are. So in order to do a really quick fix of that, we can actually put a grade here, and we can set it to RGBA, or we could just set it to alpha. It doesn't really matter. We're not really concerned with the colors of this picture. So completely ignore the red, green, and blue channels in this whole section of the script. We're not paying attention to the color. We're only working with the alpha. So if you look at the alpha channel, that's what we're concerned with. So so what this does is if you adjust the black point a little bit, we can get rid of some of the grain here. So it's kind of clearing up a lot of the stuff around and by getting rid of the black point. And so we just kind of shift the black point up a little bit. And if we wanted to fix some of the holes in our alpha, we could shift the white point just very slightly up as well. And maybe we don't want to, if I push it all the way, it fixes the holes. But then if we look at our alpha on the normal exposure, so at 1. So I'm hitting Y to switch between this really low number and the normal one, just to see if there's any holes. We can see it's really making it like super crunchy and not a good key. So that's too far. So we can't fix our holes problem with just this white point, because we create other problems. So rather than doing that, maybe I just adjust it a little bit and it will solve if I just gamma down all the way. Maybe I just try to push it just very, very slightly, and it just fixes a lot of the holes. But some of these other ones we're going to fix manually. So we'll use holdout mats, so either rotoscope that to fix it, or we'll use a different alpha that we create. So that's how you can get like a base key. So that's like what our starting point. And now we want to target different areas to try to get better keys for different areas. And so the normal way that I do this is if this part of the script isn't here yet, I'll go here and I'll do experiments. And I'll just say, okay, let's see if I can just get a better key than this of the hair. So I'll just grab one of the keyers, usually a key light or an IBK, and I'll just plug it in and start to see if I can get a better key for this area. Because I know that this area has a lot of defocus and hair, so that's going to be the part where you want to retain the most detail. So I'll go here, disable it, so I can get the little color picker here, and then just control drag and select maybe an average around this area, control shift drag, and re-enable. And now if I hit alpha A and look at the alpha, this is what it's looking like, and we can maybe compare it to this key. So we can see that they look different. They aren't giving us the same result. Not that this one's necessarily better, but it's a starting point, and we can experiment to see which one will do the best in different areas. And that's how I usually approach a key. So maybe, for example, this key light seems to be doing a better job on this side. We see that there's some more transparent detail actually kept, and we don't have all that noise problem that the IBK is giving us. So by default, the key light is doing a better job on some of this rim of this person's hair. So probably I would key mix this with this alpha. So here's our starting point, our original one. I would key mix this guy just in this area around the hair. I'm not going to do that in this instance, but that's the premise of how I approach this problem. So this, I guess I did a key here specifically just for the hair of the guy. So if we compare what I did here, let's see. Okay, so there must have been a problem area with part of my key. So if I go back and let's say look at this part of the key. So let's look at the original key here. The original key was looking like this, and if you scrub through the shot, it looks like some of our detail was being lost here. So if we look at the original footage, maybe I was trying to preserve this area a little bit better. So I did a separate key just for this chunk of hair, and I did an IBK. And a trick you can do with the IBK is, if you remember with the IBK, you're trying to push the green or this black edge to the very edge of where you start to see color. And you can see in this instance, there's some weird stuff happening here in terms of the way it's kind of detecting this color. So what you can actually do to kind of, if you see some weird area that you're trying to pull out with this is specifically with the IBK only. If you see an area when you're building this clean plate that's not pure green and it's not supposed to be in there, you can actually do a manual stencil using like a rotoshape to sort of just cut it out. And then when you use the next IBK colors to expand the color back in, it will replace it with a better green color. And by doing this, you actually get a better key. So if I disable that stencil and re-enable it, you see that actually it's solving that problem. The default key was giving us a weird issue because that green, it just wasn't pulling out the right way when we expanded it, but we just cut it out and then expand over the top. And that gives us a little bit better of a key. And now if we look at the difference and so what we did here, I did a key mix over all of the hair. using this rotoshape. So you just put a key mix node and you say, I want this alpha, this one over here, our new alpha we created, over the top of, not over the top, it actually replaces this part of the alpha. So we're going to combine these two alphas through this rotoshape. That's what we have. So we see how much detail we're bringing back by mixing these two keys together. So here's our original one that we're going to build everything on top of, and we're restoring all of that hair detail. And you're going to say, well, there's some gray here, and that might be okay. Like I said, it depends on your background, depends how bright or dark it is. Maybe if we see once we merge our picture over the background in our final composite, if we see some areas that are actually visible, then we'll need to, maybe we'll need to do this technique here. Remember the grade technique to kind of maybe try to get rid of some of that. But if I do that right now, for example, if I go here with a grade and I set this to RGBA and I start to, let's say, kind of crunch the blacks a little bit. So if I take the black point, start pushing it down, you see we actually lose a little bit of that semi-transparent hair detail. So I opted to leave it in this instance. So if over the final composite it's a problem, we can revisit it later. And so the next one we did here is another hair key, it looks like. So it says hair key screen right. So usually I try to label my keys in terms of what area they're fixing. So this key is just for the screen right, meaning what's visible on the right side of our screen. A key is just for that. And if we compare it, so here's our main key. If I look at it, this is our main key, what we've built so far. And we can see there's some problems around this guy's hair. So I've done another key just for that area, and you can see it's done a better job. And you might be wondering, well, what did you do different to get a different result? If I go to the IBK color here, and I create a new one, and I set this to green, you see when we're pulling that size down, we see all those little hair details. Even when the size is set to 0, which you don't ever want, you need it to at least be set to 1 for the node to kind of work. Usually I always just set it to 1. But in order for this to key, it needs to be pure green because it's comparing the difference between the two. So when we create this pure green clean plate, it needs to compare it against this original. And if this detail is still in here, it's not going to give us a clean alpha. So basically, when I'm going in here with the lights and I start to expand it, maybe I'll expand it a little bit further than I would for this area. You see, for example, if I push this too far, this whole area down here is turning black, which we don't want because it's already pure green screen. So for that area, it's not doing a good job because it's pushing past the area that we actually, we don't want that in our alpha. Remember, the black areas are going to be contained in our alpha. So for that area, it's not doing a good job. But for this area, this isn't far enough because I want to capture the details on the very edges. So that's why this key only works for this screen right area, because I'm pushing it further and I'm capturing a little bit more detail around the edges, even though I'm basically not concerned with what's happening down here. I'm just watching this area of the hair, and that gives us a better alpha up in this area and a worse alpha down here. So hopefully I'm not rambling too much. Hopefully that is straightforward. And we key mix that. So I take a rotoshape and I just mix that alpha up in this top corner. So you see all that hair detail that we restore by treating that area separately. So we can talk about the next part. I'll cut this into another video so we don't make it too long. But that's basically the gray keys, building a key from top to bottom, and kind of starting our little structure here on how to combine multiple alphas.